Let's give him a very, very big welcome. He's able to see you now. If we can give him a standing ovation, that would be great. He can see you via the camera over there. Please give it up for Evan Yu!
Thank you, thank you. Hello, hello. Oh, is my voice already live?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm super excited to see so many people being able to attend an in-person Vue conference again. So this is something special. I still remember standing in that very room. That's like I think that's more than 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. But it's really a pity that I cannot be there in person today. But I hope all of you would, well, enjoy the conference, have a great time, and learn some interesting things about Vue. Okay, so can everybody see the slides? All right, so let's, I'll get into the talk. So again, this is going to be an overview of what's been going on in the Vue ecosystem, what we've been working on, what other things that's happening. Some of it may be a bit dry because this is going to be covering a lot of different things. It doesn't really have a central theme, but hopefully this will get you up to date and also get you excited about some of the talks that's coming up. Okay, so let's get into it. Just a little bit more than 3 months ago, we finally switched from Vue 2 to Vue 3 as the default version. So that happened on February 7th, right before the February version of Vue Amsterdam. So ever since then, we are seeing a lot of improved adoption of Vue 3. At the same time, we also launched the brand new Vue.js.org, the brand new documentation. I talked about the new website in more details in the February talk. So if you are interested and you missed that talk, make sure to check it out. So after the Vue 3 default version switch, we're seeing great improvements in Vue 3 adoption. So currently, Vue 3 has around 800,000 weekly NPM downloads. That's measured by the downloads of the @Vue/runtime core package, which is a Vue 3 only package. So when you install Vue version 3, it also downloads this package. So we can use that as a proxy metrics of Vue 3 downloads compared to the all versions of Vue. So this number is plus 70% since the default version switch. So that's quite a good big improvement. So at this rate, we're going to see the percentage of current Vue apps using Vue 3 rise very significantly by the end of the year. So if we look back 1 year from now, last June, this number has quadrupled. So that's 4x in the past year. So it accounts for more than 25% of all versions of Vue downloads now. So I think we're very optimistic to see this number get much higher by the end of the year, which is great. Now, some ecosystem updates. So Nuxt3 is now in RC. So as we can see in this screenshotted tweet, this is a lot of work that went into the release 6 months ago. There's 1,000 pull requests, 900 plus issues closed, 160 contributors. So a lot of work went into Nuxt3, and we're really excited. We're looking forward to see the final stable release of Nuxt3. And Vuecore will also be working actively with Nuxt3 on stabilizing some of the final pieces, such as suspense, which will try to stabilize in 3.3. Another exciting news, Vuetify hit beta in May. So I believe to a lot of people, Nuxt and Vuetify are two of the major pieces for them to that blocks them from considering upgrading from Vue 2 to Vue 3. So we're very excited to see both of them stably advancing into next stages. Yeah, looking forward to the day where both release stable versions. And in other news, VitePress has just released a 1.0 alpha. So this release, so VitePress has been used in our new documentation. So we're essentially dogfooding our own new static site generator, which is Vite and Vue 3 powered. And we've been very happy with the development experience. However, we focused a lot on the lower level details, but the default theme has, could use a bit of love. So Kia, who's our core team, has been working on completely overhauling the VitePress default theme. And so now it comes with dark mode. It has a consistent design language with the official Vue documentation, but with enough visual distinction so that okay, this is a VitePress site instead of the actual Vue documentation. So this is currently in 1.0 alpha. There are some small breaking changes, but we are really excited because VitePress has really been proven to be a pleasure to work with when we're working on the official docs, and it's super flexible and super powerful as well. So make sure to check it out. We are still debating whether we should officially make VitePress to replace VuePress, just call it VuePress 3, or maybe it should remain a separate project. But the idea is, if you're looking for a Vue 3 powered static site generator, VitePress will be the official recommendation. In other news, many of you probably, if you're using Vue 3, you probably know Volar, which is our new recommended VS Code IDE extension. So starting in March, we've been sponsoring Johnson True, who is the author of Volar, to work full-time on improving it. And Johnson has been cranking out releases and bug fixes and working on refactoring the internal code base to make it more efficient and even cover more features. So as you can see, he's cranking out a lot of commits in the process. And yeah, we're proud to be sponsoring his full-time work on this. Okay, so another important piece of the new ecosystem, Vite, right? I hope most of you have been able to at least try it. And if you're already working on production projects on Vite, really great for you. So I hope you're enjoying the DX. And we are working on version 3 of Vite. Now, this is a work in progress. This is currently in early alpha. But and this is not a big sort of rewrite kind of release. It comes with a number of breaking changes, but these breaking changes are relatively minor. We always actively work with all the ecosystem partners who are building higher level tools on top of Vite to ensure these changes come with reasonable a reasonable amount of changes needed to upgrade. So if you're using just the basic features of Vite, most likely you won't be affected much. Also, if you're using a higher level tool, this change will actually happen under the hood. For example, if you're using Nuxt3 or other frameworks built on top of Vite, this upgrade path will probably be more or less transparent for you because the higher level framework will absorb the underlying changes from Vite. Actually, one of the most significant things is really just dropping the support for Node 12 because Node 12 just went end of life. So that was the initial motivator for Vite 3. But as we are working on it, we saw the opportunity of shipping some potentially breaking changes to in return for big benefits. So here's some of them. The first is we're moving Vite itself to full ES modules. So by dropping Node 12, we're able to do that because Node 14M Plus now actually is the 14M Plus is the version that starts supporting full ESM packages, right? The SSR build of Vite will also default to ESM output. So this gets rid of some complicated logic internally for us to need to sniff out whether a dependency is ESM or CJS, making sure it can work in the SSR process. So so this is really important. Both of these are also part of our overall efforts to make Vite an important factor in pushing the whole JS ecosystem towards pure ESM. So both of these will hopefully achieve, make the whole process, the ecosystem transition to ESM a bit faster. Another important optimization is the non-blocking dependency discovery and optimization. So if you've used Vite, Vite tries to scan your code base to look for dependencies and then use ESBuild to pre-optimize those dependencies. It's one of the reasons that we can start up so fast despite having huge dependencies. But the initial implementation comes with two limitations. First is we need to perform a scan phase, which can be costly if your code base is big. Another aspect of it is sometimes the scan phase will fail to discover dependencies because some of the code may introduce a dependency after it's been transformed by an actual plugin. So we have to wait until the app actually loads, then we discover there's a missing dep, then we optimize it, right? So this introduces some small frictions in terms of DX. But in 2.9, we introduced an improvement so that we no longer late discover dependencies. Instead, we can it can be non-blocking. So we optimize as we discover them. The other aspect of it is in 3.0, we're going to make this whole process essentially seamless. So there's no more scan phase, no more late discovered deps. So we will discover dependencies as Vite serves your modules, and it'll automatically wait for everything to be finalized to do one single optimization run. So this is great work by Matthias, who now works full-time on Vite. We're looking forward to this landing in 3. Another aspect of it is improving the behavior consistency between development and production. So in the past, what Vite does is we use ESBuild to process dependencies during development. Then we use rollup to build the application for production. So this creates a small mismatch because for packages that are authored in CommonJS, during development, it's processed by ESBuild, and during production, it's processed by rollup CommonJS plugin. So we have seen a category of bugs arising from this, and it's annoying because it's a behavior inconsistency between development and production. So we ideally want to eliminate this kind of inconsistency. So in 3.0, we aim to do that by using ESBuild for both phases. So ESBuild will be optimizing the dependencies for both development and production to ensure the same outcome, especially for CommonJS steps. So these are the major things that's happening in 3.0. There are a bunch of many other small improvements. So if you're interested, you can go to GitHub to check out the 3.0 milestone for Vite. So this is expected to land probably also within the next month. It's currently in alpha stage. If you have projects using Vite, please help out with stability testing by opting into the alpha releases, which would be really appreciated. All right, so now let's get into Vue core. So during April and May, we spent approximately a whole month on Vue 3 core bug squash. So this resulted in massive patch releases between 3.2.24 to 26, merged over 70 pull requests, closed over 140 issues. So all of this in preparation for our for other work that's paving the road for 3.3, because we want to make sure, okay, we get a good sense of the current outstanding bugs and making sure that we have a stable foundation to build upon for the next iteration of new features. On the sideline, so we have the SFC playground, which has been the recommended approach, which has been the recommended way to provide bug reproductions for Vue 3 at this point. And we noticed that there are two categories of bugs that's really hard to reproduce in the SFC playground. The first category is the behavior inconsistency for script setup between production and development mode. We've seen quite a few bugs in this category in the past, and most of them cannot be reproduced in the SFC playground in the past because the SFC playground was production by default. So we added a toggle so that you can toggle between the prior dev mode, so you can see you can actually show us the behavior inconsistency in the case that it happens. Another aspect category of bugs that's hard to reproduce are SSR hydration mismatch bugs. In the past, usually you would have to create a whole repository with the full SSR setup just to show us a basic, a very simple bug happening. So we managed to actually run the whole SSR pipeline from compiling for SSR to running the server renderer and to injecting the HTML into the iframe page and then hydrate it using the same code compiled for the client. this whole pipeline, we managed to make it happen entirely in the browser in the new SSD playground. So if all you need to do is just toggle the button, hit SSR on, and you'll do that in full SSR mode instead of pure client mode. So this would allow you to reproduce SSR hydration bugs more easily. It also is great for us when we are trying to debug these issues. So these are some of the important improvements for the SFC playground. All right. So now let's talk about Vue 2.7. I know we've mentioned 2.7 since very early on, since more than a year ago. A lot of people, a lot of users who are stuck on Vue 2 have been asking about it, but it's been delayed for various reasons, but we finally started working on it, and actually we've made really, really great progress. The scope of 2.7, as we've discussed before, is first, we are going to be porting composition API to become a built-in for Vue 2. So if you are on Vue 2 and you want to use composition API, right now the option you have is using the @Vue/composition API plugin. So this creates a little bit of issue because first you have to be importing all those methods from @Vue/composition API. The second is when you're using, say, libraries like Vueuse that tries to write the same composable for both Vue 2 and Vue 3, you would have to rely on tools like Vudemy so that it can, do some magic to make it support Vueuse in your project. But with composition API being backported to Vue 2.7 as built-in APIs, you can now directly do the same import ref from Vue as you would do in Vue 3. And these implementations are also more tightly integrated with Vue 2's reactivity system, so they are more efficient than the plugin version. The other major feature that we want to backport to Vue 2.7 is script setup. Many people have, so for many people, script setup has been the essential thing if you want to use composition API because it just makes your life so much easier. So we want to make sure that if we are porting composition API to Vue 2, then it would make sense to also port script setup because it's such an essential part of the DX. And then we also want to improve the TypeScript support. So this part is a little bit. So we want to retain complete type compatibility for existing Vue 2 projects. So the current shipped types of Vue 2, especially for Vue Extend, we will not change them. Those were manually authored before we moved it to Vue 2 codebase from Flow to TypeScript, which we'll talk about. So the strategy that we're going to use is we are going to essentially have separate Vue 3 types also shipped in the types, but you get them when you use the new define component API that's available in Vue 3. So define component will also allow you to define components, but with the types that's directly ported back from Vue 3. So it's more aligned. It makes it easier for you to upgrade to Vue 3 as well. It also makes it easier for Volar to support both Vue 2 and Vue 3 at the same time. All right, so the early phase of the preparation work, which is already done, is we managed to move the Vue 2 code base to TypeScript. So this is a huge shout out to PCAX, Carlos. For Carlos, who spearheaded the work, made the huge PR, and then also to David Welch, who helped with some cleanup. And so I picked up from their work and managed to convert the whole code base to TypeScript. The Vue 2 code base is also now a PnPm motor repo with modernized test setup with Vitest. So test actually runs much faster than Vue 3 now. So I need to really port the Vue 3 test to Vitest as well. So for those of you who don't know, Vitest is a new test runner, unit test runner based on internally powered by Vite. So it runs your unit tests extremely fast and has a fully Jest compatible interface. So if you were previously using Jest and had trouble configuring Vue support because Jest requires everything, all the transform to have its own Jest version of it, which it was really a painful process. It's really painful to configure Jest to work with these Vue-based setups, right? So Vitest, because it's powered by Vite, and if your project is running on Vite, it's just going to be extremely smooth because Vitest is able to directly pick up your Vite configurations. So you don't even need to configure it separately. And everything will work the same way as your source code works. So definitely check it out. And the current state of Vue 2.7. So if you've been following the work on the Vue 2 repo, you'll notice that we have a new branch called main. And this branch actually already has composition API fully ported to Vue 2. These APIs are exported as named exports. So because Vue 2 previously didn't have named exports, everything was on the default exported Vue object. But these new APIs, they're going to be actual named exports coming with full TypeScript support. All the types are consistent with Vue 3. The noticeable difference is that it suffers from the same reactivity caveats, the restrictions, as Vue 2. So some of the restrictions you'll see if you've been using the @Vue/composition API plugin, you'll see the same restrictions, namely not tracking array indices, and also you can't just add a new property. You need to explicitly use Vue, the set and delete APIs. Now, so there's a link in the talk slides that links to the release notes that talks about some of the detailed behavior differences. But in general, they're minor because we were able to reuse probably 90% of the test cases from the Vue 3 code base. And all these tests are passing. So this is really promising. And we verified that this actually already works with Vue use. Vuedemi already released a new version, 0.13, that is compatible with Vue 2.7 alpha. So that brings us to the current release date. We are currently in alpha stage for 2.7. The latest release as of this talk is 2.7 alpha 4. It is behind the V2 alpha distribution tag. So you can do, for example, npm install vue at v2-alpha, and you'll get the latest alpha release for 2.7. So currently we're focused on compatibility and stability testing in existing code bases. If you have big projects running on Vue 2, try opt into the alpha to see if it's compatible and report issues to us. That would really help. The next step is porting the script setup support. So this is a bit of an internal reorganization, but essentially prior to 2.7, a lot of the logic, for example, hot module replacement and component compiler, single file component logic, a lot of them are split in separate packages. So we are going to be moving those back into the Vue 2 repo, similar to how Vue 3 does it, which really makes it easier to sync changes across the places and keep everything consistent. And the new single file compiler logic will be exposed as Vue/compiler SFC, exactly the same way as we are doing it in Vue 3 now. This also means when you upgrade to 2.7 and then opt into the new setup, so it'll be fully compatible with the existing setups. So when you upgrade, it won't break anything, but you can then opt into the new setup. You can then just remove Vue-template compiler as a pure dependency, and then upgrade to Vue Loader 16 Plus, or just directly use Vue.js plugin Vue, because the compiler, single file component compiler will have the exact same interface as Vue 3. So our goal is so that once you upgrade to 2.7, you'll be able to just leverage the latest versions of Vue Loader or the Vite plugin Vue for both Vue 2 and Vue 3. So you no longer need to use a separate Vite plugin Vue 2, or you're stuck on the old version of Vue Loader. So that is also the long-term, the ultimate goal. So there may be small issues that we may encounter as we implement this, but that is the current design, and we believe it's feasible. All right, so it'll reach beta once we successfully port script setup, and the estimated release is going to be end of June. So there are some implications about this, because we talked about earlier that 2.7 is going to be the final minor release for Vue 2. Once we release 2.7, there will be no new features added to Vue 2. We will still fix bugs, obviously. We'll make sure Vue 2.7 has a smooth upgrade path. And it will have an 18 months of long-term support starting from the release of 2.7 stable. So this means after that 18 months, Vue 2 will be considered end of life. So that means Vue 2 will be end of life by the end of year 2023, based on the estimated release date of 2.7. So we understand that if you have projects that's stuck on Vue 2 for the long term, you don't expect to upgrade to Vue 3 anytime soon. This may create some situations where end of life usage in your system can create compliance issues. So we're thinking about how to resolve this. So we may consider offer extended support on a case-by-case basis. So this will likely be a paid service. So if you're interested, you can register interest at link.vuejs.org/xlts. So we do want to make sure that our main bandwidth is invested in Vue 3 and into the future, but we also understand that some of Vue 2 users may have reasons to have to stay on Vue 2 for longer than expected. So we want to make sure that it's a good solution for users in that scenario. So make sure to register interest and let us know how many people will actually need this. Okay, so now we're done with Vue 2. Let's talk about 3.3. So that's going to be the next minor for Vue 3, right? So 3.3 is going to consist of a few major updates that's planned. The first thing is we want to stabilize suspense. So this has been used in Nuxt3, and we'll be working with the Nuxt3 team to ensure that suspense can cover all the intended use cases, make sure it's stable, make sure it works with complex scenarios, such as with keep alive or transitions or router views. These are really tricky things that we need to figure out, but we're confident that we can get them out of the door in 3.3. And then there is reactivity transform, which has been experimental status for a very long time. So we've collected a lot of feedback. There are maybe some final tweaks we'll do, but we're looking forward to stabilizing it in 3.3 as well. And then a lot of this focus in 3.3 will be on SSR, server-side rendering. The main thing we want to explore is the lazy or conditional hydration for async components, so that you don't synchronously hydrate the whole tree immediately when your page loads. You can even only fetch and hydrate a part of your tree when it scrolls into view or when the user starts interacting with the page. So these are all the things, hydration strategies that we want to explore by using async components as your hydration boundary, essentially. And then there's improved SSR mismatch warnings. There's already pending PR for this, so this will help greatly when debugging SSR mismatch issues in development. Another important thing that a lot of users has been asking for is supporting imported types in script setup type-based macros. For example, when you do define props with a type signature, currently you cannot use any imported types in it. It'll work at the type checking level, but the compiler cannot follow those imported types. So we plan to address this in 3.3 as well, so that you have more freedom organizing your types in a TypeScript-enabled project. So these are the major things that I want to mention. Obviously, there are going to be a ton of other things. So we'll probably have a more formal roadmap when we are done with 2.7. So the work will start after 2.7 stable release. So we hope that we can get 3.3 ready in Q3. And that's the current estimation. All right. So that is 3.3. So beyond minor releases, there are also feature explorations that we've been playing with. So these are like truly experimental, early stage stuff. I want to share with you guys because we're seeing some really promising numbers from it. But just a note, everything from here on is fully experimental, explorative. It may not land, it may land. So there are a lot of things that can change. So the main thing that we want to explore is a new compilation strategy. So as we know, Vue is a template-based library framework. So even though you can use JSX, you can use Virtual DOM, right? The majority of users probably use Vue through the template. And even perhaps most of us in our day-to-day work interact with Vue through the single file component format, right? So this is a source format. So the Vue as a framework will have the opportunity to compile the file into vanilla JavaScript and CSS. So this compile step gives us the opportunity to make Vue a super compiler-oriented framework. And that is going to be an interesting direction that we're going to explore. So I've been playing with a new compilation strategy that's been Solid.js inspired. The result is we compile Vue templates. Instead of compiling it into virtual DOM render functions, we compile them into imperative DOM initialization and reactive binding setup code. So imagine we have a component that looks like this. So this is script setup. We have a single button, right? And this button contains a number of bindings. It has a dynamic ID binding, has a dynamic class binding, has a click event handler. It also has dynamic text inside of it. So the output code will look something like this. The code might be a bit small, but the general idea is instead of first generating a virtual DOM representation of the tree and then walk the virtual DOM tree to initialize the actual DOM, we will analyze the base HTML structure of the template during compilation time and stringify it into the plain HTML without those bindings. Then we initialize them directly using a template clone node, which is faster than initializing all these nodes individually, then stitch them together. And then we generate imperative code that directly locates the nodes that needs bindings. And then we generate code that sets up the effect directly by setting up reactive updates for class, attribute bindings, and inner text, and all that. We already have a runtime prototype working for this, and we're seeing extremely performant numbers. So the intended benefits of this is, first of all, we're seeing great performance on bit lists, even without the use of vmemo. We're seeing significantly lower memory usage due to not having to create virtual DOM trees. We're also seeing significantly lighter base runtime size when you fully opt into this strategy, because this code generation strategy allows us to drop a lot of the virtual DOM specific logic and have very minimal runtime. There's also the opportunity to explore lighter component abstraction costs so that each component instance will be less costly to create. So you have to worry less about using component abstractions, code design. So the challenge of this is obviously the adoption strategy, because components compile this way works. The generated code works quite differently from how Vue works right now. So there are two ways we can approach this. The first is we can opt in at the component level. So a component using this compilation mode is generated as easy code, as standalone code that can be embedded into existing Vue through VDOM-based apps. Then we need interop between virtual DOM-based components and this new compilation format. So the ideal format of this will be fully compatible with existing libraries and apps. So you essentially just say, okay, for these components, I want to compile in the new mode so that they're faster and more performant, but everything else works as the same before. Or if you're building new apps or extremely perf-sensitive use cases, you can opt in to this at the app level. So this allows us to entirely drop the virtual DOM runtime. This means you cannot use virtual DOM-based components, but it might be worth it if you're looking for extreme performance in certain scenarios. But either way, I believe this will be beneficial if we have, because this doesn't really change the development aspect of it. The template syntax and the way you write your components will remain exactly the same. This is purely just how the compiler handles the output. Yeah, and that's the opportunity that That's what I mean by considering Vue a more transitioning into a more compiler-oriented framework in the long run. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you very much, and yeah, I hope you're excited about the things that's about to come. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Evan.